Welcome to Absolutely Not, the live podcast series dedicated to providing examples of setting personal boundaries at work and the vocabulary needed to name harm in those spaces. Hello, and thank you all for being here for Absolutely Not and the growth of this community. Quite honestly, y'all's participation in this live podcast is why this space continues to grow. So thank you so much. The vocab words for this episode are no, accountability, and gaslighting. These words and their definitions and more can be found on the resources page of my website. Feel free to reach out if you'd like more words added. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp allows you to connect with 24,000 licensed therapists in a safe and private online environment. You pay just a low flat fee for unlimited therapy with your therapist. Visit www.betterhelp.com/absolutelynot for more information and to get 10% off your first month. Today's episode is titled, No is a Full Sentence. I know, say it with me. No is a full sentence.
Yes. No is a full sentence.
And that message comes from our amazing special guest today, Lisa Hurley. Lisa is a writer and activist whose work focuses on anti-racism, texturism, and the destigmatizing of introversion. Yes. Lisa has been quoted and featured in Forbes, Essence, Fast Company, and the Nasdaq screen in Times Square. Lisa serves her audiences through her HappyHappyPhoenix blog and as co-host of the Introvert Sisters podcast. She holds a master's in music business from New York University. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I am so excited and happy to be here. And I'm a big fan, as you know, and so I'm fangirling a little bit.
Oh my gosh. We are all fans in this space. I think there are amazing people in the audience. You are an amazing individual. We're all so lucky to be in community with each other. I'm so happy that you're here. And I'm so happy that you're bringing the energy. No is a full sentence. Where did the title of that episode come from?
Well, actually, it's interesting because you ask your guests to name their episodes, and somehow as soon as I saw that question, I thought, yep, I know exactly what I want it to be. It's about boundaries, and boundaries often start with saying the word no. We might not necessarily think of it that way, but that's where it starts. It starts with saying no to others so that you can say yes to yourself. Right? That's the key. It's like a sculptor sculpting away, taking away the extra to reveal what is the essence of what is necessary. So the no chips away at the extra, at the unnecessary, so that what remains is the yes. What remains is you and your priorities as a beautiful sculpture of yes.
Wow. I hope anybody who is listening to this right now wrote that down. I am a goddamn sculpture and I am allowed to chip away as much as I'd like to. Wow. I appreciate that so much. I'm now a sculptor and we are the sculptor and the sculpture. Lisa.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. You are your own creation. You are self-creating yourself, creating yourself, your space, your home, your time. All of it is your creation. And we have power and agency over that. And no is a conduit to creating more and more of that power and agency.
Okay. We will sip that tea as long as we need to. It's really hot. It's really hot. But I wonder, I think about a time where I did not have the tools I needed to sculpt the no in place. I wonder what you believe is the reason why people don't know that they're the sculptor and the sculpture at the same time.
Well, for especially for women, not to leave men out of the conversation. I mean, this applies to human beings in general, but especially for women, we are socialized to be nice. We are socialized to be passive. We are socialized to say yes. We're socialized to not have agency. We're socialized to put other people's needs, wants, and desires before ours and sublimate our own. And so I think that's where it starts. It starts in childhood, to be perfectly frank, right? And of course, it starts, I can't even say necessarily in the family, it's a societal thing, right? Because even when, you know, you think of going to school, going to college, you start there, and the kinds of messages that we are given. You know, if you don't say yes to this, people won't like you, people won't appreciate you, you won't fit in, right? And that desire to be accepted, to be loved, to fit in, to be a part of the group is natural, right? And it becomes more and more solidified through our teenage years, and then as we continue to grow. And we want to be loved, we want to be accepted, and we are taught that saying no precludes us from receiving that acceptance. And so therefore we think, wow, if I am to be loved in the way that I want to be loved, I have to say yes. If I'm to be accepted, if I'm to be promoted at work, for example, I have to say yes. I have to say yes to that assignment that I really don't want to say yes to, because otherwise they're going to say I'm not a team player, for example, right? And so that's where it starts, and it just continues on until one day you just realize, hang on a second. I don't know that complete happiness is possible all the time. One can't be happy 24/7, but I think you can approach, you can get closer and closer to it. And you're like, okay, I could be, you know, slightly miserable sometimes doing what I want, or I could be very miserable a lot of the time doing what other people want. Right? And then you're like, okay, which one weighs better? Which one feels better to me? And what feels better is saying yes to yourself by saying no to other people.
These words are like, they just, oh, I appreciate them so much, because these are the words that a younger version of myself could have desperately needed.
Thank you.
I think about the dream that we're being sold from a very young age. If you do this, you will get this, A plus B equals C.
Right.
For a lot of different people, depending on the color of your skin, depending on your gender, depending on what you present as. That's just not true. We don't get A and B. Sometimes we don't get C.
You don't get any of it.
Was there a time in your life where you just kind of, wow, that equation does not work? Can you think of a time where that happened?
There have been many times, because let me step back a bit and say I am still a recovering people pleaser, still. And so the work is ongoing, the work is continuous. So was there a time? There have been several times. Times at work where I, for example, said yes to assignments that I did not want to say yes to. I remember once being told that the only way I would be promoted is if I planned a party at work. Now, my job had nothing to do with party planning, and party, you know, there are event planners. It's a real thing. It's a real job. It is hard, but it is not my area of expertise, right? But, you know, I was told basically your expertise as a writer and as a professional copywriter with decades of experience does not matter. In order for you to be accepted, in order for you to be promoted, you have to be seen as nice. You have to be seen as amenable. You have to be seen as an extrovert, right? And in order for you to do that, you have to plan this party, and that's how you get cookies and possibly get promoted. Now, I knew it was never going to happen, but at the same time, because of all of my intersecting identities, I knew that as a woman, as a Black woman, as an introvert, as someone with a Caribbean accent, right, which makes a difference as well. I basically had no choice but to do this, even though I didn't want to. Otherwise, things would go badly for me. So I wish I had been able to say no. I wish I had felt empowered to say no, but I did not. And just to be clear, not that I didn't feel like I could say no and survive it. I could have, but it just would have made things more difficult, right? It would have made things more difficult. And sometimes you just don't want to smoke. You just don't. You don't have the energy. You don't have the time. A lot of us are dealing with constant ongoing battles that some people are not aware of. And so there are times when you just decide, okay, the path of least resistance for me right now in this situation is to say yes, even though it goes against what I really want to do. So I've definitely been there, you know, but then, yeah, there comes a time where you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. So more and more nowadays, I take time to say, okay, can I think about that and get back to you? Can I check my schedule and see if I have any bandwidth? Actually, I'm not feeling well today, so can we push that to another time? That's not within my area of expertise. Can I recommend XYZ person do it instead? Right? So part of the work is also being prepared with a pleasant no, right? Because there are ways and ways to say no. Sometimes you do actually just have to say no, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, we live in a world where social commerce is necessary, and you find ways of saying no and reframing and rephrasing the conversation so that everybody involved saves face. Everybody feels good at the end of the conversation, but your boundaries are still being maintained. Right? And it's an art, and it takes work.
And what you have described for a lot of us in the room, for everyone who's listening to this, are several ways on how to take back your time or take back your energy. So even if you say yes to this thing, okay, I'm gonna need it in this context, I'm gonna need it at this time, or because at some point you're going to need to take back something. You also mentioned how pretending or feeling the needs of an extrovert has weared on you from time to time. Have you had to set specific boundaries around being an introvert?
Oh wow, where do I start? So for example, at work, I wherever possible, I do meetings with my camera off. Just as an example. Obviously, again, there are times where it's necessary to have your camera on, but once I can get away with it, I basically say, look, I'm more comfortable if I have my camera off. Is that okay? I try where possible to avoid certain social interactions. Especially now that we're in a virtual situation. Yeah, I don't want to do the happy hour. I just don't, you know. So I say no to things like that. I say no to activities and events that require too much extroversion from me, right? And I also have a bit of HSP going on, like I'm a highly sensitive person, and sometimes certain sensations or activities sort of become overwhelming for me. So let's say, for example, I don't know if you've ever used like a virtual online collaboration whiteboard, but sometimes we do that at work. But basically, seeing all of the virtual people interacting and all of the cursors flying around the virtual whiteboard and all of that, it becomes overwhelming. So I have said sometimes, you know what, is it okay if I send you my feedback and my input separately so that I don't need to look at that? So it's not that you're not going to do the work. It's not that you're not going to participate. It's just that your input is going to be in a way that as an introvert and an HSP is not overwhelming for you.
I cannot thank you enough for your personal boundaries, like sharing them in this space, because I resonate so much. I did not even think about that. But as soon as I say, oh, there's like 17 fucking people in this meeting and they're all writing on that whiteboard.
Listen, and the thing is, I don't know, I like, for me, like, I literally get motion sickness sometimes. You know, I see it, people are moving, everybody's moving their cursor on the board at a different time. And my brain actually like goes into, it gets fried, it goes into overdrive, and that I can't focus and contribute anyway, because I'm feeling ill from watching all of that stuff. It's just too much activity, you know? So then the whole point of me contributing is being lost, right? So it's like, no, I can't do this. If you want Lisa at her best, right? If you want some, you know, creative and linguistic genius, this is how I can provide it to you, period.
This is how I can provide it to you. I think so often people are afraid that the person receiving our boundaries on the other side is going to come or receive them negatively. Have you ever come across people receive your boundaries negatively?
You see, I'm ready. I'm like, let me tap into this ring. People are afraid of that because that's how a lot of people react that way, right? I will say it's especially narcissists and people who have the intention of taking advantage in some way, right? That react in that way. And all it says to me is that there are a lot of narcissists, a lot of narcissists out there in the world, right? But if you tell someone, hey, you know, I'm not feeling well, can we do XYZ at another time? And they respond in any way other than, oh my gosh, so sorry to hear that, feel better, yes, sure, we can reschedule. That is the response, some version of that. If that is not the response, they do not have your best interest at mind, and they are trying to push a boundary, period. That's the only way it can be interpreted, right? Any version of, oh, I wish, are you sure you can't? It would be really nice if, oh my gosh, I feel so disappointed, and any of that, no, it's crossing a boundary. And so, yeah, people get angry. I've had people get angry with me, but here's the key, right? And again, this goes back to how many of us are socialized. We are socialized to be nice so that we can be liked. Get comfortable with not being liked. Get comfortable with not being popular, right? Get really, really comfortable with that. Because if you don't need to be liked, right? Then if somebody gets mad at you, okay, you're mad, and I'm over here happy because my boundaries are still in place, right? That's just how it is.
And it's that quantity over quality mindset that we're kind of infused with, like the number of followers you have, the number of likes you have, the number of people you can call to your birthday party. Sis, I don't care about those numbers. I want them to be good people.
That's it. I mean, you know, it's interesting, and you and I have talked about this a little bit before, but in terms of what many of us on this call do, right? Many of us are writers and content creators. And so in some ways, the metrics do matter, right? The metrics matter, the followers matter. Obviously, for a podcast, let's say, you know, your subscribers matter, your listeners matter. That's one thing. But on the other hand, it's like you're not for everyone, right? You are not for everyone. You know, you can't sort of, you know, Oprah your way through life, right? Oprah was probably a once in a lifetime, right? The rest of us can only aspire and be little mini Oprahs, right? And be true to who we are, be true to what we do, what we want to put out in the world, being grateful for the numbers, but not being subject to the will of the numbers, right? We serve the audience, but we are not slaves to the audience.
Wow. And I hope everybody heard that, because there are a lot of people in the room that do the type of work that we do. And it's really hard. It's hard because on a daily basis, we are reminded, hey, you need to do this in order to get this. If you tweaked yourself a little bit, you'd be able to get more of this. If you exchange this. But Lisa, you're telling y'all, you don't need to do that. And you will have to pay somewhere else if you do that. Lisa, could you kind of tell them about the tax that comes with kind of not setting those boundaries with everything we talked about?
I would say part of the tax is a loss of self-respect. Let's start there, because then that feeds into a lot of other things, right? It feeds into that pit in your stomach that you feel. It feeds into that anxiety. It feeds into the headaches. It feeds into stress and depression and all of that. And this is not, of course, I'm not a doctor. This is not a diagnosis of anything, but I think you understand where I'm coming from, right? A lot of suppressed emotions express themselves on the physical plane. And so, yeah, and so every time you disrespect and disregard your own boundary, you're telling yourself, hey, I don't respect you. And then how can you expect others to respect you when you're not respecting yourself? Now, mind you, the people who truly love you, right, will know, okay, here's an area, like, my people, and my best friend and I actually always joke about this. She's like, Lise, you still struggle with boundaries, don't you? I'm like, yeah, I still struggle with boundaries, right? Like I told you before, it's an ongoing process for me. But I'll tell you what, she knows I struggle, but she doesn't push. She never pushes me. She never takes advantage. She's like, you know what? I think you could say no to this. Sometimes I'll call her for advice. You could say no to this. My sister, my mother, my people, my true friends will say, yeah, maybe you might want to change your approach with that, right? So to help me, to help shore me up, right? When I am not, I mean, there are times when, as you can tell, I'm very, very strong in about my boundaries, and that no is indeed a full sentence. But yeah, I'm a human being, and sometimes it's hard for me. And so my people help me to be stronger.
And Lisa, yep. I am swallowing my tears as much as I possibly can, but I'm tearing up because I remember times when the people that you spoke of, the people that were closest to me, were not those type of people. The people that were closest to me were like, well, girl, just let them do that then, like lower your prices, or just, and if your circle doesn't sound like Lisa's circle, if their intentions don't sound like they want the best for you, please,
get a new circle.
Oh my gosh.
It's hard. It's hard. Okay, don't make me cry. Don't make me cry. We talked about this, right? We're both criers. Listen, and thank goodness, because it's like they're starting right behind here. But yeah, that's all part of it, because there are very, very few of us who are 100% stalwart 100% of the time, right? I don't know anybody that is. All of us, it's peaks and valleys, highs and lows. And so, yeah, sometimes you need somebody to be that support system for a person or a group of people, to be that support system for you and help you along and say, hey, remember who you are. Remember what you said you wanted. Remember what your standard is, the standard that you set for yourself. Maintain that, right? And for the times when your resolve weakens, or for the times when you forget who you are, you need those people to remind you, right? And if you don't have people who remind you, like make it a habit and a practice of writing down things that you've done that you're proud of, like a literal list, right? Like just a regular pen and paper, right? And write a list of things at the end of a day or a week that you have accomplished, that you're proud of. And they don't have to be anything, again, it's not about the numbers. It doesn't even have to be anything work related. We all have a lot of things going on in our lives beyond work, right? If somebody is, let's say, suffering from depression, a lot of us, it can be hard to just sort of like do the basics in life, keep the house clean and tidy and all that kind of stuff. Like you might be proud, today I did all my dishes at the time I was supposed to, and that was my big accomplishment. Because for somebody suffering from depression, that can be difficult to achieve, right? And so look back at that and say, you know what, I've done this thing. I'm proud. oh yeah. This, I'm starting to remember who I am. I'm starting to feel stronger. And then rebuild your own strength that way and give yourself the possible more of a possibility of maintaining your own boundaries.
I love it. I love that it's a message from you to you. And that's
Oh
what
yeah.
boundaries are. They are the messages we already written for ourselves. We're just sharing it with other people. This is a boundary I have with me. I'm sharing it with you so I don't chew your head off and I don't cut you off the chopping block. I want you to stay with me on this journey. So this is what
Mhm.
you need in order to stay with me. I know you
And
talked about
oh, sorry, no, you go ahead.
I know you talked about leaders or people in your organizations responding negatively towards your boundaries, but have there been any people in your organizations who are like, you know what, Lisa, do you like continue to do what you're doing?
Uh, there have been, I have to say yes and no, by which I mean, hierarchical organizations are necessary but problematic, right? And so often what happens is, let's say you might get support or encouragement from somebody who is a peer or maybe just one level above or below you, but they have no real power in the organization, right? And so it's nice. It's nice to be seen and to be supported and to know that someone else um, sees you and has your back, but it can still leave you feeling alone and disempowered because no actual change is being made. So yes, I have definitely experienced um, peers and co-workers and colleagues saying, yeah, Lisa, do you do this? You have, I have your back, you have my support. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It makes you feel somewhat safer, but in some ways it doesn't help because you're still out there alone. I mean, I definitely have experienced, being sexually harassed. For example, I'm sure many of us, so many women, especially, femme identifying people have experienced this, right? And you might get someone saying, wow, I saw what happened, or that wasn't appropriate, or whatever. But if the person who is behaving inappropriately towards you is a few step levels above, what can they do, right? They don't really want to intervene because them intervening could possibly affect their livelihood. And so, it can be tough.
I cannot thank you enough for sharing that. The like duality of what occurs in
Mhm.
organizations. Like I remember the same experiences. We'll go to the break room and they'll be like, yeah, you told him, like, thank you for telling him. Like, okay, sis, bro, fam, where were you? Like, why did you
Right.
also not?
Why did you say this in the meeting? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
It's,
and
it's tough.
even if we get it up to the level, like I worked in HR, so
Mhm.
we would get it to my level and change still wouldn't be implemented. So if you are a leader in an organization or if you are a crucial part in your organization, just know that we need fucking change. Like, don't just go talk to George and Chad and Tim, whoever. They need to be fired and policies
Oh
need
my
to be
gosh.
changed.
It's so interesting, and I don't want to say too much. Let's say hypothetically that I might or may not have been going through a situation involving bullying. Let's just say hypothetically, right? And I may or may not have hypothetically told people to whom I report, um, hey, here's what's going on, and here's how I feel about it, what's going to be done. And essentially being told that, I need to make changes. And so, I definitely, I may or may not hypothetically have advocated for myself and said, no, what actually needs to happen? First of all, that's illegal. Let's start there. But second of all, the bully in question needs to be reprimanded or dealt with in some way. I'm not, I'm not suggesting that people be fired. I don't, as we would say in the Caribbean, I don't want to take food out of anybody's mouth, right? I never want to do that, but at the same time, there should be repercussions, right? A lot of organizations are out there doing this whole performative stuff about, we're a family. That's always a red flag for me, right? We're a family, and we love our employees, and we're one big happy group, and until something actually happens. And then, you're kind of just left there alone, right? And so again, getting back to knowing who you are within yourself, getting back to drawing boundaries for yourself, getting back to the importance of your circle and your support system. That's where all of that comes into play, because, or even more strongly, because for me personally, I've been working for a long time. I would love to be independently wealthy, sipping Mai Tai somewhere, but alas, right? And so you get used to, okay, this is just how corporate culture is. But you know what, for me, okay, well, look, I am a professional, and you are going to get my professional best in terms of the work that is required, right? I have my own work ethic. I have my own standards of excellence, and I'm never going to give less than that. But you see, when it's time, when, I don't know, whatever time it is, when 5:30, 6 o'clock, when that hits, all notifications are off, right? I draw a hard boundary. I am not answering emails. I'm not answering Slack. I'm not doing any of that. And like I said, no, I do not want to go. I do not want to do all those random events. I don't want to do that team building, that bizarre team building, culture build. I don't know what those things are. I don't understand them, right? And so I draw a hard line, because I'll give you 100% when I'm on the clock. As soon as that clock strikes, whatever I determine my time off to be, then I am no longer yours. I do not belong to you, right? It is a contract. And so, which we spoke about about paying professionals, right? So it's a contract between you and your employer, right? And so, yeah, give them 100%, right? But they don't own your entire life. That is another way of drawing a boundary. They do not own you, period.
And all of the activities and like engagements you talked about, like Slack. I hate Slack. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I really do hate Slack. But there are forced relationships. Like, it's very forcing me to be something other than your employee. Like, I am not your friend. I am not your family. Because I have been in too many circumstances where that shit don't even count. Like, it don't mean the same thing to us, friend, family. So for you to force me into those relationships is definitely going to be unhealthy on both ends.
Yeah, I just try to minimize it. And again, drawing boundaries. Like I'm sure many of us have experienced this, where let's say you're on a Teams meeting, right? And then so the video call is going on, then somebody's typing in the chat, then somebody sends you a Slack message about what's going on. And it's like, okay, look, I can do the meeting. That's all. I can't do all these different side conversations at the same time and still focus on the meeting. So my boundary looks like muting everything else, right? I mute the chat for the video call that I'm on. I also go ahead and mute Slack, right? And I'm just like, no, I can't participate in all of these conversations at the same time, right? And I wait until after the meeting is done, and then I respond to people. And so I've trained people, please don't, in general, I mean, there are times when it's possible, but in general, no, I'm not having multiple conversations at the same time. No, not gonna happen.
I cannot thank you enough. You have shared so many tips on how in real time we're able to set boundaries, in real time how we're able to train people around us in organizations and with our coworkers, with our leadership on how you need to treat me because I'm an individual with individual conditions and individual needs.
Yes.
Wow. For anybody who's in the audience or listening to this that is thinking, okay, Lisa, well, that's you. I could never implement these boundaries. I could never move forward and being the amazing person that you are today, Lisa. What are the top 3 tips that you would share with them to start setting boundaries at work?
I would say start small. Definitely start small. Let's say, for example, your employers often require that you work through lunch. Again, illegal, right? What you do is start by blocking your calendar off, right? Sending a signal bit by bit that trains people that, okay, this person is not available during this time, right? It will not always work, but a signal will have been sent and people will start regarding that and remembering that boundary. So that's one way of starting small. Another way is getting back to something that I alluded to earlier, is saying, let's say you're asked to respond to participate in a project that you don't want to, right? Say, can I get back to you on that? Right? Say, can I get back to you on that? Let me check my calendar. Let me check my calendar has saved me from many a thing, right? Many. Another thing is sometimes people will do drive-by or drop-by conversations. Then there's no record, you don't remember the details. And that is a way that a lot of people use to try and bully you into, because they know it's harder to say no to somebody that's standing right in front of you. So what I have done myself is sometimes in that case said, hey, again, let me circle back and I'll send you an email with what we discussed and let's take it from there. Again, you've committed to nothing, right? And that gives you some breathing room and some space to be able to basically plot, plan, and strategize for how you want to deal with the situation, right? So those would be my top 3 tips. Basically, give yourself some breathing room. Give yourself some breathing room. That's it, right? And be okay with not being liked. These people ain't your friends. They aren't. At work, I mean. Y'all are our friends. Them people ain't our friends.
These are really good tips. The drive-by conversation, I'll tell you, many of times. Wow. And my brain doesn't even function like that. Like, no. You come into my desk talking to me real quick and then running away.
Because they're not also like, if many of us, in the before times, right? Before COVID, you're in sort of the cubicle form. Everybody can hear what's going on, right? And of course, nobody is going to think, oh, the person that's asking is being unreasonable, right? If they ask and you say no and everybody hears it, all everybody hears is you saying no, and they say, oh, again, this person's not a team player, they're not being nice, etc., etc. And so giving yourself that's why people do it, to force you into foolishness, right? But that's why you very nicely smile, your best Colgate smile, and say, okay, let me think about that. I'll email you back and I'll get back to you about it. Boom, done.
Oh, and you know what? This is like very random, but when you were describing the cubicle forms and all that, I really hate the show, The Office, but I thought of Stanley and how Stanley just be like, no, taking naps at his desk and all that. But it also paints a picture of what no looks like, because he was the only person in the office that would say no to shit. Oh, okay. See, they painting pictures, but
it's necessary. It's necessary. The cubicle farm, I mean, way back, way back, early in my career, more people had more space, more people had offices, right? And as time went on, cubicle farms and no boundaries, right? Because if you think about it, office is literally like a physical boundary. And so the boundaries, the physical boundaries in offices were reduced to make you feel, and they made people feel basically less safe in many ways, in many, many ways, right? And so this is a way, like you have to find ways to push back, right? And find your own space. I mean, when I have worked in places like that, I spent a lot of my time. One office I worked in had a library. I would go to the library. Another office had a quiet room. I'd go to the quiet room. Another office had like those little very teeny tiny one person meeting cubicles, and I would go work in there. In other words, don't disturb me. If you need me, email me and I will get back to you. I'm not doing a drive-by.
Ooh, I love it. No drive-bys here. Now that we've gotten all these juicy gems and we have learned so much from you, Lisa, are there any last minute sprinkles that you'd like to share with the audience before we go?
Well, first of all, I do want to say thank you. I don't know if I even said this at the beginning, and we kind of like dived right into it, but thank you so much for this. As you know, it is my birthday today. And when we were planning this, I thought, I really want to do this on my special day because I am a huge fan of yours. And so thank you for this opportunity. I am so happy that we got to do this together and share this time and space. My biggest tip, and I know I've said it multiple times, but it bears repeating, is the biggest one is be comfortable with being unpopular, right? Because other people's discomfort in this context, other people's discomfort can be inversely proportional to your level of comfort, right? And so get comfortable with putting your need for comfort first. Yeah.
And on that note, I hope y'all are like, you know what? Fuck everybody. I'm gonna don't burn everything to the ground today, but
no.
Yeah, start saying no to everybody. Once again, this has been Absolutely Not. I'm your host, Katrina Stroll. Everything we talk about is going to be in the show notes when this is published. Until we see you next time, this is the last episode of 2021. Your girl is going on break, vacation, holiday, because quite frankly, I need it. I deserve it. I did all of the things this year that I wanted to do. And we will see you next year, though. So thank you so much for spending time with us, and keep setting those boundaries and saying absolutely not to everything and anything unaligned. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Absolutely Not. Your support means the world to me. You can always further support the show by leaving a review or visiting the Support the Mission page on my website, www.katrinastroll.com. My website is also where you can register for upcoming live episodes, watch amazing past episodes of Absolutely Not, and buy Absolutely Not merch. Yay! Until next time, keep setting those boundaries and saying absolutely not to anything unaligned. See you next time.